طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Thank you very much for coming and attending the next session of our mentorship program. And last week we didn't have a session, as you guys probably all know. I'm not on WhatsApp, but I'm told a WhatsApp message went out indicating that there was another event happening at Western, and Sheikh Yassine Dwyer came down to London, and hopefully many people had a chance to catch it. He is, mashallah, a chaplain in Toronto and does wonderful work out there, and we're blessed to have him. So when we knew that he's coming to London, we said we're going to cancel this session in lieu of what he's doing over there. I love his work, and inshallah, for those who attended, benefited as well. So this is session number 7, and we started talking about initially with habits, and then we now moved into willpower. This is the second session on optimized practice, and specifically focused on willpower and how to boost it. And this is part of our optimized practice, and we're still in the productivity module. And as you can tell, there's a lot of content there. And I was speaking with Asma actually earlier today, saying there's so much stuff that I'm kind of debating whether we just cover the scratch the surface or dig deep. So we'll find out how much we're going to cover, inshallah. We're trying to give you as much as possible, and at the same time, not take 3 years in this program. So it's always a dance, and thank you for being patient with us. So we're covering the productivity module. There's also mental strength, physical wellness, inner peace, as well as service. So let's do a recap. I love to do a recap. Why do we do a recap? A, mainly it's for me, so I know where we're at, and B, I have a sense that if you're like me, you need to hear something 17 times before it sticks in. So the objective of this module and these modules is to move from theory to practice. Always ask yourself, if this is just didactic, what we're doing here, you come, you listen, you take a few notes, and you come back next week and just listen again, that's all good, inshallah, and you're going to get ajr for that, especially if the intention is to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The magic, however, happens is when you say, can this impact my behavior? Where was I 7 weeks from now or 8 weeks from now? Where was I and where am I now? And is there an improvement? And sometimes it takes a lot longer than 8 weeks to make an improvement, but that's the litmus test. How we know if we're doing our job correctly is if you are moving closer to your ideal self, and i.e. coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I ask you, and I beg you to always ask yourself this question. Is this having any impact on your day-to-day behavior? If it's not, khair, no problem, but maybe it can. And if it is, then kudos to you. And I know it is having impact on a few people here. I won't call them out. If they want to put up their hand and share with us, as we had discussed before, and tell us about their own journey, they're more than welcome to do so. We'll give you the mic. But I won't say who it is, just so as not to put them on the spot. But I know some of you are making progressions. I see you, and I know what you're telling me, and I'm super glad to hear what's happening in your life. And sometimes share it with others, whether you want to do it publicly or not, because it moves from the realm of theory into practice. So thank you for entertaining that. So now we're going to talk about willpower. We talked about it last week and discussed 2 tools, if you guys remember. The tool was the deep why and the fundamentals. And why is willpower important? Because we know, scientifically, willpower outpredicts many other factors in terms of your performance. Your life outcomes are typically measured, or can be typically measured, based on how much willpower you have. We showed the video of the marshmallow test, which basically says those children, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of age, who are able to delay gratification. So basically they want something, it's the marshmallow. Everybody wants a marshmallow, except if it's not halal, but especially if it's halal. So when a marshmallow is put in front of you, you naturally want to eat it. However, if you're given the offer of saying, listen, if you wait a little bit, 15 minutes in that case, I'll give you 2. So that's how you can measure willpower in children. Can they delay their gratification? And those who are able to delay their gratification typically have really amazing life outcomes in the future because it's a trait. It becomes a habit that you restrain yourself from your impulse and you do what you know you should be doing, irrespective of what your nafs is asking for. So maybe there's something that you want to consume or something that you want to do or something that you want to say. Your nafs wants to do that. Somebody maybe called you a name and your nafs is built to respond right away. Well, you called me an idiot. Well, you're stupid, for example. That's the impulse that we all have, and that's perhaps a survival mechanism. Why do we have this yearning towards food? Because that's how we stay alive. Why do we have a yearning towards having relationships, sexual relationships? That's how we propagate ourselves as humanity. But restraining that, especially when it comes to the haram, is super important, absolutely super important. So the concept there is willpower outpredicts. Let's take the example of IQ and willpower in academic performance. What they used to do is they said, okay, if I know somebody's IQ, this is a test that actually they run. If I know somebody's IQ because I can measure it, and I know somebody's willpower because I can measure it as well on a scale 1 to 4, which one, if I knew day one when they entered school, which one will be a predictor of how well they do at the end of school? So they measured the IQ, they measured willpower, and it turns out to be that willpower outpredicts IQ by a factor of 2, which is huge in terms of academic performance. i.e., if you know somebody's willpower, you know somebody's IQ, you can pretty much guess with a factor of 2 that the willpower will predict how they will do 4 months later after a term or 4 years later after a degree. So that's why willpower is the queen of all virtues, and it's the predictor of many things that we do in life. Many of us knew that, of course. The question is, how do you improve that in your life? And we talked about 2 things last week, and we're going to talk about 6 things this week. And I'll try to fly right through it. That way, thank you, Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. That way you have a few tools to consider and pick 1 or 2 or 3 and try to implement it in your life. So the first tool that we talked about last week was know your why. Okay, you want to memorize the Quran. Perfect. Why? You want to graduate from school. Excellent. Why? You want to get married. Beautiful. Why? Why? Why is it important to you? Is it because you should? Somebody told you, society told you, you should make money, you should get a big house, you should get a swimming pool, you should memorize the Quran, you should build muscles. Whatever it is that you want to do, know your why. And if your why is not strong enough, one of 2 things can happen. You either drop that thing that you wanted to do, that society is telling you you should be doing. I would encourage you to drop it, even if it is memorizing the Quran. Absolutely, I would say that. And I know that's kind of controversial. What do you mean? Not everybody needs to memorize the Quran. You're not created on this earth simply to memorize the Quran. Now, I'm not belittling memorizing the Quran at all. I'm just saying that if it's important to you to do it, do it. If it's not, but you should be doing it, then consider dropping it, even perhaps temporarily. That's number 1. Number 2, the other option is make it a strong why. Really make that connection of, I know my parents asked me to do so, to graduate at a school or to do whatever. Excellent. How do I make it my goal, not their goal? What do I need to do in my life to make that my goal? Graduating out of medical school becomes mine, not because it was given to me. That's the deep why. The second one is the fundamentals. And actually the fundamentals is one whole module that we're going to discuss: eating, moving, sleeping. So I'm going to brush over that very quickly. Why is that important, eating, moving, sleeping? Ask yourself this question. When you have a really terrible night of sleep, the next day, how amazing are you in terms of the decisions that you make? Everybody would think about that and go, yeah, I know. When I'm hungry, I make bad decisions. When I'm tired, I make bad decisions. That's how our systems work. You know, in Islam, the Sharia, in Sharia courts, judges are encouraged never ever to pass judgment if they're hungry, if they're angry, if they're tired. Why? Because that judgment's probably going to be bad, probably going to be wrong. So that's why fundamentals is the second tool that we talked about. The more you can focus on your own fundamentals, the more likely you're going to resist that hot temptation when it comes. Somebody cuts you off, you want to yell at them. You're more restrained when you're strong, when you're well rested, when you're well fed. The opposite is if you're not, you're likely just to respond like you normally, or like I normally do, which is not something that I'm proud of. So that's why it's the second tool that we covered. Now, we talked about willpower and where it comes from, so I'll skip that. We're going to talk about 6 more tools. And the whole idea behind willpower in today is to play offense, not defense, with your willpower. What does that mean? Play offense, not defense. So playing defense means, you build up your willpower and then you put yourself in a situation where you have to use it. So perhaps I build up my willpower and then I happen to go to the mall in the middle of summer, and then there's a whole bunch of things that I shouldn't be looking at, and then I'm going to keep my head down and say, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Nope, I'm not going to look at that. Nope, I'm not going to do that. Nope, nope, nope. That's playing defensive. Playing offensive is not being in that situation to begin with. Obviously, going to the mall is something, it's a simple example. You may say, oh, I never have to go to the mall again in my life. Great. But sometimes you have to do certain things, or you have to be in situations where you are going to be tested. But to the extent that you're able to play offense, not defense, you're more likely to win. I know I used the food example many times, and again, please forgive me. This is for me, not for anybody else. It's not meant to make anybody uncomfortable. But for me, I used to, and I still do, love, love, love pizza. I love pizza. Love it. I can eat it for the rest of my life. I have given up pizza because I've given up flour, but that's not the point here. Let's say I decided never to eat pizza. There's one of 2 ways I can go about it. I can still buy the pizza when I'm in the grocery store because I really like pizza. And I'm going to put it in my fridge and say, you know what? I'm not going to have it. But when there's a special occasion, one time a year in Eid, that's when I go grab the pizza. So guess what? It enters my house. And what do you think I'm going to do when I go home, like tonight, where I just ran over here from work, skipped breakfast and lunch? Yes, not very good way of, I'm telling you something and I'm doing the opposite, but that's how we are as humans. And I get home after Muhammad meets with me in the 17 meetings we have planned. It's going to be 9, 10 o'clock at night. What do you think I'm going to do? My blood sugar level is very low. I'm going to be tempted to eat that pizza. That's playing defensive. And then my willpower has to come in and say, Khalid, no, you shouldn't. Khalid, no, you shouldn't. Khalid, no, you shouldn't. Okay, I can play that game, and maybe I'll win. Great. Playing offensive means I'm never, ever, ever going to buy pizza and store it in my fridge. I may go home. I may feel like pizza. What am I going to have to do to get pizza? I can call Pizza, of course, or I can have to get in my car, drive to Walmart, park the car, go inside, pick up a pizza, and bring it back home and cook it and eat it. That's very unlikely to happen because by that time it'll be 11 o'clock at night and I'm very tired. Playing offensive is meaning not being tempted to begin with. If you have snacks that you know you shouldn't be eating, get rid of them in the cupboard. Why? Because when you really need it, when you really don't need to have them, that's most likely when you're going to go after them and get them. That's the whole idea behind playing offensive, not defensive. Play. First tool, if then, or actually this is the third tool. Yes, please. Nam. Nam. Beautiful question. Jazakallahu khair for asking it. Basically, the question is, well, okay, playing offensive versus defensive, that sounds amazing, but sometimes I'm in situations where I must play defensive because that's how my life works. I can't always switch from defensive to an offensive posture. And you are absolutely correct, 100%. There's certain situations where you can't do anything about it. You will have to be playing defensive because you structured your life in a way and then it hit you in the face and somebody cut you off on the highway or looked at you funny or said a verbal comment about your hijab or what have you. In that situation, you kind of have to, you're playing defensive. You're going to have to say, I want to shout back at this lady for yelling at me because of my hijab, but I'm not. So that's when you restrain yourself. That's going to continue to happen. That's called life. The question is, the more you minimize those opportunities, the more likely you're going to have a lot of willpower in that situation. If all your day you've been playing defensive, 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 when you could have controlled it, when the moment happens when you can't control it, you're not going to have any willpower left. And you're more likely to behave in a way that makes you not very proud the next day when you wake up in the morning. So the idea is not to always play offensive. However, when you can, and you get to choose your posture, try to get ahead of it as opposed to behind it. Does that make sense? It comes with practice. Yeah, I know it's not a button that you just press and you say, all my life I'm going to be offensive. But basically, I'm trying to tell you, be aware that you get to choose your posture sometimes. And if you get to choose, try to choose to be offensive, not defensive. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's what it is. Offensive means to prevent it from happening. So you're not even using it when you can. And they say an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure or whatever the thing is. That's exactly what we're saying there, is to try not to put yourself in a place of temptation and then having to say no to it. And for brothers, you know what that means. You know, there are certain places where you're going to go, especially in the summer, and it's very tempting. Absolutely. That's how you're programmed. Well, try not to be there if you can. That will reduce the chances that you make a mistake. Ayman. It doesn't strengthen it. It saves it from being used in the first place. Yes, correct. Willpower is like a muscle. We talked about it last week, where the more you use willpower, the less you have for everything else. So what we're trying to say is try to use it strategically. When you have to, go ahead and use it. When you don't have to, save it for some other time. Ibrahim.
And if you're young and practice to use it offensively, that is to avoid situations where you would otherwise have to use it, then you develop the habit of steering away from that thing when it does come in.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Very well said. The more you play offensively, the more likely you're not going to be in those situations, and that in and of itself becomes a habit. I'm picking the mall. Please don't use this as, oh my God, we're saying we shouldn't be at the mall. I don't go to the mall, but I can only assume that maybe not the best things happen at the mall. But if, let's say, bad things happen at the mall, people just not the best of people operating there, and you choose not to be in the mall so you don't use your willpower, and that happens consistently, guess what? You just don't hang out at the mall anymore. And maybe that's a good thing for you. Again, we're not saying going to the mall is haram or problematic for anybody. I'm just using that as an example. It's like saying, I will not go to a bar and sit there like a kitchen / bar and have lunch with my teammates because I'm tempted to have alcohol. La samahallah. So you're going to go and sit and have your burger and look at the wine or the beer and say, I'm not going to have it. Fine, you're using willpower in that process. If you're tempted to drink alcohol and consume it, well, why not just go to a halal restaurant and never have to fight with your demons inside to say, should I today, should I, maybe a sip, maybe just whatever. No, play offensively by not being there to begin with. طيب, any other questions, or should we go to if then? So let's jump to if then. If then basically is a tool, third tool, that says, if something happens, I will do something else. Period. That's simple. If then, it's an implementation intention. If something happens, I will do something else. You're programming your brain not to even think. So if somebody cuts me off, and I have a tendency to start honking at them and wanting to cut them off in return and feeling offended because how could they be disrespectful to me when I'm driving and they cut me off like that? If that is your tendency, then what is the then that you want to happen? If your reaction, you're triggered. Every time you're triggered, something happens. Well, how can you change it to a different then? I'll give you me as an example. My kids yell at home, I get triggered, like many of us who have kids. Because to me, you shouldn't be yelling. Kids should not be yelling. I'm in my 40s and I still didn't get the message that kids will continue to yell no matter how much I dislike it. So when kids yell, I yell back. That's the natural reaction. I can tell myself, okay, that is not the best way to behave. So if I hear yelling, I will go and make wudu. What? Really? Yes. If I hear kids yelling, I'm going to go to the washroom, make wudu. If I hear yelling, I'm going to go back and make wudu. Why is that important for me in my case? Because maybe when I took 3 minutes to make wudu, it gave me a sense to just take a deep breath and calm down and have to deal with the situation in a more empowered way. If something happens, I will do something else. If I get up in the morning and I need to work out, let's say I need to work out in the morning, I'm not going to have to think about it anymore. If I get up, I'm going to go for a run. If I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to pray Fajr. If I come home, just before I walk in home, in the car, in the garage, I'm going to take a deep breath and make a recommitment that I'm going to be an awesome father today. Every time I walk in home, in the garage, I'm going to take a deep breath and say, no matter how bad the day is, I'm going to be an awesome father for my kids today. If then, if then, if then. That's how we're programmed as human beings. If I come into the masjid, what do? I'm going to sit in the back and put my head against the wall. Completely fine. That's an if-then statement. If the brothers come in, they're going to give each other hugs. That's how we operate. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of if-thens that we operate with. Something happens, I'm going to do something else. The question here is, are you aware of your if-then statements that are happening to you? Are you aware of what they are? Those programming that happen in your head. Are you aware of them? If you're not aware of them, you will not have the fortitude to change them. If you are aware of them, you may have a chance in changing your behavior for something better. That's how the if-then works. It's basically a pre-commitment. You're making a pre-commitment for a certain course of action. So every time somebody cuts me off, I'm going to take a deep breath and make dua for them. That's a beautiful if-then statement. I'm going to actually make a dua for the person who I want to punch in the face because they yelled at me. I'm going to send them a bit of dua, a bit of love. Take a deep breath. Remember the Prophet ﷺ, and they just yelled at me. I'm going to say, may Allah bless them, not in a condescending way, but in a deep felt sense of love and shared humanity. That's a big if-then statement. It doesn't have to be this grandiose. It could be as simple as, if I just use the washroom, I'm going to come out and do 2 push-ups. Whatever you want to implement, no big deal. Create something and stick to it. That's how the pre-commitment works. The next thing is bright lines. So if then bright lines. What are bright lines? This comes from the legal framework. If you've ever written a contract or signed a contract, if you bought a house, for example, or if you got a job offer, that's called a contract. And good contracts, by design, have bright lines. What are bright lines? Everybody is clear what each party is committing to. It's not fuzzy lines, it's a bright line. I get into a contract with hiring somebody, they know exactly what I'm hiring them for, what they'll be doing, how much I'll be paying them, when am I going to be paying them. That's what a bright line is. So the idea behind bright lines is basically putting a line in the sand that is very clear for you that you will not do. So a fuzzy line is, again, let's use the example of what? Video games. Video games. Thank you. Thank you. Video games or phone usage. I'm going to use the phone less at night. Do you think that's a bright line or a fuzzy line? Noor says bright. No, she didn't. She said fuzzy. طيب, did somebody here say bright, Muhammad? طيب, do you think it's bright or fuzzy? I don't know what's up there, but what do you think it is? Bright. Why do you think it's bright? Okay. What do you think it's fuzzy? Okay. There's A, at night. What's at night? Is it 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock? And what's less? I'll use my phone less. That is very fuzzy. What's bright is when you say, I will not touch my phone past 9 p.m. That is a clear, bright line. Because once you touch your phone and it's 9:15, anybody who is aware can tell you, yeah, you just crossed that line. Now, why 9 o'clock? Why not 10? Why not 6? Why not 7? Doesn't matter. It's your line. You drew it. You said to yourself, it's important to me to not do a certain thing, not to yell at my kids. So if you today, a bright line is, I will not yell at my kids when I get home. The moment you yell at your kids, you know you've crossed that line. I will not eat McDonald's ever, for example. Or in my case, I will not consume flour, period. I know when I cross that line because it's very clear that line if I crossed it or not. What's the point behind bright lines? Not crossing them? Not really. Not really. Because you're human and you're going to make mistakes. You will make mistakes. You will cross that bright line. But the idea behind a bright line is that you know you just crossed it. You told yourself, I don't like myself when I'm up at night scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or whatever we're using nowadays for hours and hours and hours. It disrupts my sleep. I get up the next day feeling not very nice. I waste a lot of time instead of doing what I need to be doing. I don't like that behavior. Okay, great. But I never have the willpower to not do that behavior. SubhanAllah, your brain knows I shouldn't be doing this. Your heart knows I shouldn't be doing it, but you do it anyway. Why? Because you're human. There's nothing wrong with you. You're programmed this way. You're programmed to fall into temptation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala built us not to be perfect. Shaitan will come to you and say, see, you're bad, you're good for nothing, you're never going to improve. A'udhu billah. Verse is saying, I'm human, have self-compassion, and recognize that we're all common humanity. We all fall into this. But let me develop a tool to help me when I fall into it, because I know I'm going to fall into it. And once I go home after the nice session about willpower and habits and procrastination, I feel great the next day, but 6 days later, I fall into it again. So the idea behind a bright line is that you know you've just crossed it. And what do we do in Ramadan? We have a bright line, which is the halal haram, and we try as best as we can not to cross the halal haram line, because that's a big deal. You know, you touching your phone is not a halal haram kind of issue. It's you wanting to improve and become better. Once you fall in the haram, wal-'iyadhu billah, it's a big deal because it's in Allah's eyesight. What you do in Ramadan, you push that halal haram barrier even further. So what is halal becomes haram for you. It's halal for you to eat and drink halal food. It's halal, completely halal. In Ramadan, that bright line moves a whole lot closer because Allah makes it haram for you. So that's the idea. I will not touch my phone past 8 o'clock touch my phone, easy. Anybody can tell me. Leen, my 5-year-old, can tell me, Baba, you're touching the phone. So that's easy to tell. And 8 o'clock, that's an easy thing to tell because we can tell when 8 o'clock comes around. Versus, I'm going to use my phone less. Also, I will not consume prepackaged foods. Again, very easy. It doesn't need to be your bright line, but if it happens to be your bright line, if you want to reduce on prepackaged foods, that would be a nice one to pick. I will not pick up my phone until I do my wird. Another example. I want to do my wird in the morning, but I'm tempted. Let me just check what happened. What happened today? Email. Maybe I got a notification or what have you. Versus, I swear by Allah, I will not touch my phone until I do my Quran for the day. That's a really bright line. What's that? Wird is your portion of Quran that you recite on a daily basis. And it could be your homework, it could be anything that you want. In this example, it's just an example about Quran. Does that make sense? Any questions on this? Because I'm going to get you guys now to come up with a few yourself. Any thoughts, any questions? No? Going once? Going twice? Okay. We're going to do things a little bit differently. We are going to have a group exercise. And inshallah, I don't have a lot of time to give you, forgive me, but we will do things a little bit differently. Meaning, you know how we've been grouping in friends and people that you know. I would like to break you in random groups, if you allow me to. So we're going to group each other. We're going to keep the brothers separate from the sisters. We'll start from the sisters. I'm going to give you a count of 6. Remember your number. We're going to break in 6 groups. 1, look at me please, because I'm going to be giving you a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. Break off, please. 6 groups. And the brothers, hang on 1 second, Ibrahim. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go. Go to your groups. Yes, Ibrahim, what were you going to ask me? Yeah. Find your group quickly and sit down once you find your group. Let's see how far this takes us. Jaldi, jaldi karo. We found our group. Okay, can you sit down once you find your group? Okay, the sisters are all done. The guys have no clue. Okay, sit down, please, once you've found your group. Anybody missing a group? Where's 5? Okay. Okay, perfect. So, what you're going to do is answer 2 questions. It's really simple. The first question is you're going to come up with 5 different if-then statements for anything that you want. Doesn't matter. Islamic, non-Islamic, whatever goal you want, just come up with 5. And by the way, you know how we say assign a speaker and blah, blah, blah? We're not going to assign speakers. I'm going to be picking you. And amongst your, yes, oh man, yes. Asma told me this is not going to go very well, so we'll see. So I'll pick the groups. and I'll pick the speaker. Yes? So, you guys listening, there's going to be a rude awakening for the brothers. I'll be picking the group and picking the speaker. Forgive me. We're all one beautiful family. It's a safe environment, so it's okay. So I'll be picking the group and the speaker. Last time I say that, you're going to come up with 5 different if-then statements, and this can be very quick, and 3 different bright lines. 5 if-then, 3 bright lines. Examples. I came up with 3 myself just before. So 5 if-then, 3 bright lines. 5 if-then, 3 bright lines. Go. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 more minutes. Yeah, I'm sorry. 5 if-thens and 3 bright lines. And remember, I'm going to pick who's going to say. Okay, 30 seconds left. Okay, let's bring it in. Let's calm down. Let's take a deep breath. Perfect. We'll start with these brothers. And yes, Abdurrahman is not making eye contact because he wants to pretend he doesn't exist, but he knows the mic is coming to him. I'm gonna ask everybody to calm down. Otherwise, we'll be doing breathing exercises, and I know you guys don't like that. So Abdurrahman's gonna answer just one question. Give me one example of an if-then that you came up with. I've just given you 10 minutes. You must have come up with something, no?
If I wake up early, I will go to the gym.
Nice. Okay. That's an if-then statement. If I wake up early, now it'd be amazing if you define what early is. You don't need to do that now. But if I wake up before 6 o'clock, then I'll have enough time to go to the gym, and I will go to the gym. Excellent. Do we have another mic for the sisters? And who am I going to get? Go ahead.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, shoot. And do the
One if-then.
and then do this one.
Okay, so for our if then, we said if I feel like saying a bad word, a cuss word, for example, I'll say astaghfirullah or alhamdulillah instead.
Beautiful.
And then for our bright line, we said whenever we hear the adhan, we'll stop what we're doing and make wudu.
Excellent.
Meeting.
Whenever I hear that, then this is actually a personal pet peeve of mine. especially at work, the adhan goes off, and okay, in 10 minutes, in 10 minutes, in 10 minutes, and there you go, 3 hours pass, and you're still working. So that's a beautiful bright line. If I hear the adhan, I'm going to go and pray or go and make wudu or what have you. Beautiful bright line. Anas, one if then, one bright line.
So if I wake up in the morning, then I will wipe my eyes 3 times and recite Ayatul Kursi,
Okay.
and then inshallah pray Fajr.
Okay.
And then the bright line is, for example, I want to stop going on TikTok too much. I will set an alarm for myself. So when I'm on it for like a certain amount of time, the alarm will go off and I have to get off, like a screen time alarm.
Okay. So your bright line would be, if the alarm goes off on TikTok, I'm going to put my phone away, period. That would be a bright line. Beautifully constructed one. Let's go. That's the group. Can I get you to tell us what if then? Yes.
If I wake up, then I will get up 10 seconds after waking up.
Aha. Beautiful. And what bright line did you use?
Like during first class, I will not pick up my phone because like early in the morning.
Perfect. I love it. What you just used is Mel Robinson's 5-second rule. She has a 5-second, not 10-second countdown. And she basically says, when you're kind of debating whether to do something or not, just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go do it anyway. And sometimes it works really good when you get up in the morning, because you get up in the morning, you're in bed, oh, just a few more minutes, it's so warm, versus saying, I'm going to start the countdown. When I get to 0, I'm out of bed, basically. So very nice constructed. Faisal. Guys, you knew this was coming, and like, come on, Jaldi.
If I wake up early or like at the time of Fajr and I hear the adhan, I'm gonna make sure to get up and like not stay in bed.
Okay, beautiful. Any bright lines you guys picked? Speak louder.
I will try to like make wudu every prayer,
Okay.
I guess.
Try is not a bright line. I'll
Okay.
try, because you could always get away with, oh, I tried, but it didn't work. A bright line would be, every time I'm going to go pray, I'm going to make wudu. Yes, very nice. Very nice. Every time I go pray, I'm going to renew my wudu. We're going to get 2 more groups. Forgive me, we're not going to get to everybody. Next group, can we get you, sister? Were you part of that group or no? Okay, can you take the mic and tell us again, one if then, one bright line?
Yeah, so for an if then, we said if we see like a small task around our house, something small that needs to be cleaned up, we'll do it right away instead of procrastinating. And then for a bright line, we'll turn off the TV by 8 p.m. and read a book instead.
Very well done. Thank you. And can we get you, sir, to tell us the last response?
For the if then?
Yeah. And bright.
Okay, if I go on my phone, I won't spend more than 10 minutes at a time. And then for the bright line is I must finish all the schoolwork before 7 p.m.
Beautiful. See? Very simple to do, very hard to execute sometimes, but very simple to do. How many of those can you add? Millions of those. My recommendation is start with 1 or 2 or 3, implement them a few times until they become habitual, and make sure you have bright lines that you will know once you've crossed. I'm going to get to 2 or 3 more. If you can turn that mic off, I think, if you don't mind, because it's causing feedback. And then we'll break for Salah. Sometimes to boost your willpower, all you need to do is take a deep breath. Very deep breath. I'll tell you what, I'll read this. This was so captivating. This is from Kelly McGonigal's work. In order to boost your willpower, slow your breathing down to 4 to 6 breaths per minute. This can shift the brain and body from a state of stress to self-control mode. A few minutes of this technique will make you feel calm, in control, capable of handling cravings or challenges. And we don't need Kelly to tell us that because Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us this. But it's nice to know that the science and what he has taught sallallahu alaihi wasallam matches. When we're hot, when we're in impulsive mode, sometimes all it takes is to slow down. Slow down, and yeah, you want to do that thing, you want to eat that thing, you want to say that thing. Excellent, fine. Just take 1 minute to take a deep breath, 4 of them, and see how you feel afterwards. And a deep breath, as we won't do it now, we don't have time, but through the nose, deep into the belly, and exhale through the nose. It's 3 components. In through the nose, not in the chest. Most of us breathe shallow and in our chest. It's actually in the belly, where belly comes out, and yes, you can hide it and nobody's looking and do it in private, fine. But the belly comes out, the diaphragm goes down. That's a sign that it went very deep. And then you exhale slowly through the nose, not the mouth, for a little bit longer than your inhale. We don't have time to go into the mechanics, why a bit longer, why through the nose, why deep, but trust me, that's how it's done. Actually, don't trust me, we'll discuss it sometime in the future, inshallah. We just can't do it now. And I was going to have all of you do that, but we won't have time. But the last 2 tools that I will discuss is stress and willpower, how they go hand in hand, and lastly, compassion. When you are stressed, you are likely not to have much willpower. Sorry to break that to you. When your anxiety and level of stress is high, your willpower is depleted automatically. And we cycle through phases. So we oscillate. SubhanAllah, ask yourself, like when you're at work or when you're studying, can you sit, or memorizing Quran, if we take that example, can you actually open up the Quran, sit there and memorize for 3-4 hours straight? If you had 4 hours of memorization to do, most of us cannot do that. It's very, very difficult to do. Even prayer at night, we're not like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We aspire to be like him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it's very difficult to stand there up in prayer for 6 hours to the point where your feet swell and start bleeding. Most of us need to oscillate. And the problem when our stress is high and we need to calm down, what do? We typically, so work, and then you want to take a break. Most of us go and do things that don't reduce our stress, actually aggravate us even more. So what's an example of a break that you could do to reduce your stress and hence not deplete your willpower? What do you guys think? Workout, potentially. Take a walk, excellent. Sleep, take a nap, absolutely. Sorry? Talk to a friend. You guys are amazing. Did you see the slides or what? Excellent. Any other examples? Adnan. Journaling, okay. Wudu, yes. Anything else? Checking email, yes. Sorry? Dua, beautiful. Checking email, you think? Absolutely not. TikTok, news, Netflix, typically depends. Actually, Netflix depends. Halal shows on Netflix, of course. Like there is some halal. There's that hadiyah or whatever they have on there. So typically, you guys have hit it on the head. Many of us, me included, work. I did that today many times. And then I need to step away. What do I do when I step away? Pull out my phone, check out what's happening in the news. I know this. I know that this is wrong. And I'm admitting to all of you in public that I do that when I know it's wrong. Why? Because I've just worked too much. And my mistake was not the news. My mistake that I allowed myself to sit at the desk for 3 hours and not properly oscillate. Not take the break before I need it. That's the trick, is work. Okay, after 90 minutes, step away. But I can go for another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes. Of course you can. But after 50 minutes, after the 90 minutes, you're probably going to be so depleted that you're not going to make the right decision. And I did that today. Just today. coming in here to give you a talk about willpower. I didn't step away. Yes, I had a crazy day at work. You can tell I just came from work. I don't dress like this for fun. And I didn't step away. And I paid the price. I got the phone and check out the news. And it's not helpful. And then you get into this cycle where you're grinding all day. And then you come at the end of the day and you just crash. You crash and make wrong decisions. So I'm telling you this, that A, we're all humans. We all will continue to do this. The more you're aware of this, the more you can say, aha, hold on a second. I see what's happening here. Maybe I need to step in and do things a little bit differently. You had a question. Now. So I'll say two things on this. One, this external motivation is actually science has proven that this is one of the very difficult things to drive people. Daniel Pink wrote a book called Drive about internal versus external motivation. And anytime you put external motivation, especially on kids, it doesn't end up going very well. So for example, if you do your homework, I'm going to give you X. So people end up doing their homework only for that X that they're going to receive, like video games. And if you read a book, I'm going to reward you with video games. The moment, and that will work for the short term, until you can no longer reward them for that with a video game. You say, okay, read your book, but I don't have a video game to give you anymore because you played all of them. Guess what's going to happen to reading? Dropped immediately. That's how we've been built. So it's an external motivation as opposed to internal motivation. And video games, you know, for some people, it could be a de-stressor, perhaps. For most of us, with most of the games out there, it's something that jacks up your stress levels, not the other way around. So you have to see if it works for you or for your children. I find video games are not to be very relaxing, stress-relieving activities. The very last thing I want to talk to you about, and we don't have time to come up with stress relievers, is this picture, which says compassion. What do you see when you look at this? What do you see? Somebody put your hand up and say, here's what I feel when I see this picture. Sympathy, Ayman says. Yes, ma'am. Now, you feel sorry, you feel empathy, Aboud, you feel blessed. Dina, you see the brothers together. Okay, how does that make you feel? Okay, excellent. Yeah, you can share, go ahead. If you'd like, you can share. What do you see? What do you feel when you see that? You feel bad. You know what? I feel bad too. Because that is a picture where most human beings will look at and say, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, there, but by the grace of God go I, and I feel bad for them. You feel compassionate towards her and them. How many of us would look at that and say, oh, what a bad mom. I can't believe you raise your kids this way. You're not taking care of them, and you're harsh and critical of everything that she's doing. Ask yourself, did you have that feeling when you saw that picture? Most of us didn't. But you know what? We speak to ourselves like that all the time. When we make a mistake, like she made a mistake. I'm sure she made, like, this is not the best life. This is not the life she wanted for herself. And maybe that's an accumulation of many mistakes over a lifetime. But we're able to look at her and have that compassion. When you do a mistake, when I do a mistake, do I give myself the same compassion? And the compassion is necessary not to say, oh, it's okay to do the haram. It's okay to fall in sin. A'udhu billah. We're not saying that. We're not saying that. But we're saying is recognize that you are a human being. Human beings by design are not perfect. They will make mistakes. You will make mistakes. The question is, what do you do after you make the mistake? Do you turn around and say, Ya Allah, I admit and I come back to you willingly asking for your forgiveness? Or do you completely ignore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and continue doing your mistakes? So most of us, for self-compassion, we feel guilty, we get in a bad mood. Our brain tells us, I need reward because I don't like to be in a bad mood. So you go and do a reward-seeking behavior. Typically, it's behavior that is short-term reward only. So you want immediate gratification. This is the Netflix, the chocolate bar, the whatever it is that you end up doing. For non-Muslims, it could be the alcohol or the drugs or what have you. And that breaks your long-term goal because you know you don't want to be drinking alcohol or smoking drugs or weed or what have you. And what does that do when you break your long-term goals? You're feeling guilty. You feel guilty, bad mood, and repeat the process. Shaitan 101. Shaitan loves to do this. I know it's time for salah, but this is what the shaitan actively works on, whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim. How do you break the cycle? By saying self-compassion. Talk to yourself nicely like you talk to your friend. Say astaghfirullah, renew your intention, try again. This is how you can, inshallah, boost your willpower. Jazakumullahu khair for listening. Next week, inshallah, we may do procrastination. We may do Ramadan. I don't know. Stay tuned. Thank you. We hope this was helpful. Inshallah, we'll break for salah now.